614 Startups Nation. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. I am your host, Elio Harmon, and I'm so excited to be back. I have a lot of great things in store for you this episode. Coming up, my guy, Doug McCullough of Color Coded Labs. But first, we got to do a little bit of news, a little bit of social media, and some events coverage, all right? Now, first up, Jobs Ohio, very exciting announcement. Jobs Ohio creates a $50 million VC sidecar investment fund for state startups. All right. Now, Ohio, even though we've made a lot of strides in terms of attracting venture capital to the state, we could always use more money, especially money that could be invested into early stage companies. In Jobs Ohio, last week I reacted to the fact that we now have an innovation district here in Columbus, Ohio, which is another great thing, a great way to incubate and grow our startup ecosystem. But this additional venture funding is really going to help get capital to companies that need it most, those high growth companies that are looking to scale and grow. And I'm especially excited about the fact that this funding will mirror the deal terms that the lead venture capital fund invests. So let's say you pitch a VC like Loud Capital or Drive Capital or Nationwide Ventures, for example, and they are gonna offer you a certain deal. Well, Jobs Ohio is gonna come alongside that to boost the total amount raised. And I think they're cutting checks up to $2.5 million, so a pretty penny as well. What excites me is that they're not going to just be looking for those venture funds that traditionally invest later on in a company's life. They're going to actually be looking at deals being vetted by angel investors and seed stage investors. So very, very exciting. If you have a young company out there, there's some money out there, and they're looking for growth opportunities. So great time to be pitching your startup across the state of Ohio. Congratulations to Jobs Ohio. I see you guys out there making some serious moves. All right, so that's the only news story we're gonna focus on today because that's big news enough. We're gonna switch right now to social media. And you know I gotta give my social media followers a huge shout out every time. Hey, listen, I know your attention is out there, it's divided. And if you could give a little piece of that attention to 614 Startups, it's much appreciated. Big shout out to my guy, Chris Rengstorff. I hope I'm saying that right. He's a director over at IGS Solar. And last week we were talking about the Innovation District. The Innovation District, one of the areas that we want to lead in Columbus, Ohio, is in clean energy. Makes sense. IGS Solar is a company in Columbus, or in Dublin, Ohio, I believe, that is in the clean energy space. So just wanted to give my guy, Chris Rengstorff, a shout out. And then let's flip over to IGS Energy, and their tagline is, every choice we make today impacts our planet tomorrow. Join us and let's go green for good. So another shout out there to IGS Energy, a company that's innovating in the clean energy space. So thank you guys for following the 614 Startups Nation. Another update on the social media side is our YouTube page and our campaign to 1,000 subscribers. Now, listen, we got some growth the last time. We were at 28, we're up to 32. Listen, we're moving in the right direction. And this is kind of a cautionary tale because you guys are watching me build something in real time. It might look crazy today. You're at 32, how are you gonna get to 1,000? Consistency, my friend, consistency. And so if you guys could watch me go from 32 to 1,000, you guys are capable of achieving your dreams too. You just got to stick to it. So if you haven't subscribed yet, check us out on YouTube, 614 Startups, and follow us and be part of that growth to 1,000. All right, let's switch over to events. Guys, I've shouted out this event so many times. Probably when this podcast comes out, this event would have already occurred. So if you haven't heard of this event, you know, it might be too late, but I still got to shout it out because at the date of this recording, it is still in the future. All right, so on Monday, April the 12th, Startup Grind in partnership with Google for Startups is having a conversation with Claudius Bema. I think that's, or Bemba, that's how I say his name. Claudius, listen, man, forgive me. Let's do coffee if I got it wrong. In fact, there's a coffee partnership here for everybody who attends this event, and that's in partnership with the Entrepreneurs Brew. If you attend this event, you register, you attend this event, you will get a free, I believe, a 12 ounce or 1 pound bag. I don't know. We might throw a bonus in there, make it 1 pound for everybody who attends this event. So check it out. It's on the 614startups.com website on our events page. All right. Next up, when it comes to events, is one of my events. All right. So, you know, as the pandemic kind of recedes, this was a project that was started by our friends over at Tech Life. This is all virtual for now, but hey, who knows? Maybe we're going to start doing some in-person stuff here pretty soon. But this is an episode of 614 Startups Live. It is episode 2 with my guy, Ryan Frederick of AWH, and we're going to be talking about finding your niche. All right, now it's tempting as a new startup or as a new business owner to try to serve your entire addressable market, right? If you're making diapers, I don't know. If you are making diapers, you want every baby to wear your diapers, right? That would be the ideal situation because you would have a very large company. But what is your minimal viable audience? Where can you go to build those first customer relationships, to really start, test your idea, and scale with those first loyal customers? So check out that conversation, very important, Finding Your Niche, featuring Ryan Frederick of AWH. In fact, one of my favorite business books, The Founder's Manual, is written by Ryan Frederick. I read that thing. It is my startup Bible. All right, y'all. Now that you're up to speed, we're going to move on to my conversation with my good friend, Doug McCullough of Color Coded Labs. 614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. My name is Elio Harmon, your host, and I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Doug McCullough of Color Coded Labs. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
All right. Well, we're doing great. I'm doing great. I'm excited. But before we get started, I got to give a big shout out. This is a mega milestone in the history of this show because we have officially cracked the Fortune 100 with this supporter. Support for 614 Startups comes from Nationwide. Nationwide's mission is to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. To help fulfill that mission, Nationwide is looking to invest $350 million worth of venture capital in insurtechs that will help them create new and exciting products and solutions to meet the needs of their customers. If you are interested in partnering with Nationwide's venture capital team, visit www.nationwideventures.com to learn more. Again, that website is www.nationwideventures.com. Nationwide is on your side. Now, listen, that's been a dream for me to say that. That's incredible in the history of 614 Startups. Put a pin in it. We have made it. All right, Doug, let's get this thing started. For folks who don't know you, you are a man about town. You've been a part of this startup community. You continue to build, you continue to innovate, and excited to talk to you about Color Coded Labs. But I always like to start with a little bit of the personal. So why don't you share your personal background so we can get to know you?
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to be here. Good to talk to you. In my background, first of all, I'm a musician at heart. I'm an artist. I started out in jazz composition at Berklee College of Music. I did not move forward with that career, but jazz composition and arrangement and creating things was always a part of what I was about. I was not a good math and science student in school, and I thought that music and art was different than that. I reached a point in my career I needed to go back and do something different, and I wanted to get into technology, information systems, and I found that the creative capabilities that I had in composition and arrangement and working on music and creating new things actually fit in. And so I hit my stride. I got into information systems and operations management, moved to Columbus, and I've been working in IT ever since. I've done some private sector work, did a whole bunch of that, but then I worked into public sector. I got into state government. I've been with 4 different state agencies. I've done 2 different municipalities. The first one is in Richmond, Virginia, which was an incredible experience. And that's when I left Ohio for a time because I didn't feel like I was really moving and developing the way that I needed to. And that gave me the opportunity to work with Dublin, Ohio, City of Dublin, recruited me and said, how would you like to be our first CIO? And I was into it. So in Dublin, I had the opportunity to work on smart cities and IoT and smart mobility and broadband expansion and intelligent communities and any number of different things. There was a lot of freedom there trying to develop an economic development side. And I grew. I learned a whole bunch about cities and how governments work and how technology works in communities and supports it. And most recently, I felt that I needed to go out on my own a bit. Some of you may know that I'm a co-founder of Black Tech Columbus, and we formed that group to form an authentic space for Black technology professionals to connect, collaborate, and create. And as a part of that, that advocacy that I've been doing and talking to other technology professionals, I've been telling people to skill up, and if you can, start a company. You should don't just get a job. By all means, participate in the economy, get a great job, but start a company if you can. And the time has come for me to put my money where my mouth is, and the entrepreneurship bug has bitten me. So now I'm getting involved in startups as well.
That's amazing, man. I appreciate you giving us that backstory. We're going to pick into it. But first, man, we got to start with the music background. Let's talk jazz for just a second. All right. I'm going to put you in the hot seat here. You're either going to make some friends or foes in the jazz world right now. We're going to do your take on a couple of different jazz musicians. All right.
All right,
let's start with your favorite jazz singer. Who's your all-time favorite jazz singer?
I'm going to surprise some people. I'll say Dinah Washington.
Okay, all right. That I didn't see that one coming. You know, you could put Louis in there. You could put Ella in there. There's some other singers out there that were kind of top of my list.
Well, for the people who are hating right now, I was going to go with Joe Williams, but I'm going to go with Dinah. Her phrasing, just there's a lot of people you could do, but you got to choose a direction and go with it. So.
All right. So horn section. All right. If you had to go to the horn section, who's the must have in your horn section all time? It could be saxophone. It could be trumpet. In that horn section all time, who's your go-to?
Cannonball Adderley.
Okay.
My all-time favorite. All
right. You see me, I'm not deep into jazz. So my lists are like kind of Coltrane and Miles Davis and those big names. You're getting into the nuance here. So we know your jazz. All right, let's go on the drums. Who do you have on the drums all time?
Boo Hainer, most definitely. Art Blakey.
All right. Well, listen, you're giving me a list of people to go back and listen to. A lot of these names are new to me, so I really, really appreciate it. And if you could listen to one jazz album for the rest of your life, and that was the only one you could pick, which one would it be?
That's interesting. So it would have to be Coltrane, and I think it would be A Love Supreme.
Okay. All right. So I'm definitely bumping A Love Supreme on my way home so I can catch that vibe too. All right. So let's start with building a career, because you got into, you transitioned from music into IT, and you've reached leadership level, right? CIO level. For somebody who's at the ground floor looking to get into IT, or they might start building their careers, what are the essential building blocks to, one, being successful, but two, growing and building a career into a leadership opportunity if you so desire?
That's a cool question. I talk about music sometimes because many of the people I'm talking to now are also pivoting, and to let people know that I've made it to become a chief information officer, but I started out as a musician. And I was in a totally different space. So that can be done. And I love for people to understand that. When I came into the field, I was a non-traditional student. I was older than other people who were coming in and being recruited. And one big thing that I will say is that I've always done something that other people did not want to do. Projects that people didn't want to take on, roles, responsibilities. Nobody wants to be the person who takes notes in the meeting. But when you take the notes in the meeting, you get to record and define how things get done. And there's actually a lot of power and influence in that. So instead of being a developer or a network guy, I was a project manager, and nobody wanted to be a project manager at Lucent Technologies over on Broad Street when I started there. They wanted to create patents. They wanted to create amazing new technologies. But I wound up rising very, very quickly because I was actually running the program. You couldn't sell the product until the product gets done, and I was in that place. So I guess I would say to people who want to be a rock star developer or want to be, have a role in mind, that being a scrum master or being one of those other things is not all that bad. What you want is to be in a position where you are the one connecting different people, adding lots of value, and defining how things get defined. There's some Machiavellian type of stuff in here, but you're never going to be the best technologist. So I recommend to people that they're the best connector, that they are the best communicator, and that they do jobs that other people don't necessarily want, because that makes you really popular with senior leadership who are looking for people to get the job done, not for rock stars.
And that's one of the things, I'm glad that you brought that up, because career, there's a big strategy component of that. Like, I think a lot of times people want to go into coding and they just want to be good at coding. But in order to accomplish your goals, you have to be very strategic. And one of the things, like you said, you rose very quickly was because at the program manager level, you're already leading people.
That's right.
Right. So naturally, when you're looking for leaders, people look for people who are already leading people to promote, because that is a much different skill set than just being able to do your job.
Yeah.
If I'm reading into this, and in my world as well, there's also a hesitation for taking roles like that because leadership is hard and you're actually putting yourself on the line where you might fail. Let's talk about this fear of failure and risk taking as well in terms of growing and developing your career.
That's absolutely right. And what I observe when I talk to people about what they can do and what they wish they were doing, and they want to know, how do I get there? A lot of where I've gotten has been serendipity. So it's not that I made a plan, I was going to get to point B from point A. It is, I took the opportunity that was in front of me at the time, try to excel at it, impress people, and use that opportunity to get to know people. You wind up having the opportunity. The position you want to be in is that now you have multiple opportunities to choose from. The big mistake that I see people doing is they're uncomfortable leading because it means uncomfortable conversations, or they feel some imposter syndrome and feel like, well, I'm not trained as a leader. How could I possibly do that? But one of the big things we do is complain about the leaders that we have. And we say, well, if I was ever in that position, I would do better. Well, okay, you're going to get that chance. And a lot of times it won't be formal leadership. You become the leader of your team and you are the de facto leader. And that's a great position to be in, because when the time comes for them to tap you on the shoulder, you're going to wind up in the best position.
All right, great. I love that background. For all of you folks out there want to get into the IT world, it's not just about getting the certification. It's about having a strategy for your career, putting yourself in a position to do the jobs that other people might shy away from, whether they get the glory or not, like the gritty things like taking notes, etc., and serving however you can. But then also taking your shot at leadership opportunities. Even though there's risk, there is no reward without risk. All right, Doug, I want to get into this next chapter of your life. You climbed the ladder, you were in leadership. Now you're going to strike it out on your own as a business owner. You said the bug bit you about the entrepreneurship portion or about the IT portion. Where's kind of this fire to go out on your own coming from?
Well, it's interesting. So I had been talking about a lot of things, and I mentioned Black Tech Columbus and other things where I've been talking about how can people improve their careers, improve their interaction with this amazing economy that we have in the technology world. If you're not in the technology world, you may not be experiencing that amazing economy. Like, I'm not seeing an amazing economy out here. But in technology, there's a huge amount of demand for talent, and I was not seeing that go to some of the people who look like me. And so in talking about that, I just raised it and started talking about that. People started asking me to speak on the topic. And then I'm doing podcasts, and then I'm doing TED Talks, and then I'm doing articles and interviews and things like that. I did not consider myself a subject matter expert, but people began listening to me. And over time, I did become that. So because of my government contacts and my observation around smart cities and intelligent communities, I gathered some capabilities that became valuable to some other people. And it was the guys from Color Coded Labs who approached me and said, with your contacts and with your capabilities, you would be a great CEO for what we're doing. What that did for me is it removed an enormous amount of risk. I have mad respect for people who say, look, I've got a great idea. I'm going to put some of my own money up and I'm going to just make it happen. This idea had already existed. I was able to join a team, and that removed a lot of risk for me. And I just want to mention that because all of us feel like I want to do the big thing and I want to succeed at it. And we don't start thinking about co-founders. And I just want to put a shout out there and say, share your vision. Because if nothing else, people can let you know when you're full of it. And people can let you know when you're a little off. But when you're by yourself, you take every criticism as people coming at you. When in fact, you need to have a couple of partners and people who say, I think you're a little bit off on that. So that's what bit me. And then the enormous amount of opportunity here in Central Ohio. You do this all the time, Elio, so it's very hard to watch a unicorn get created, especially from people who who you go to coffee with. And the next thing you know, you turn around, they're having a 7-8 figure exit. And you're going, why didn't I do that? And it's imminently possible for many of us to do this. And so that's how the bug bit me.
That's amazing. Now, hold that thought because we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the value proposition of Color Coded Labs. But to your point about bringing on co-founders, you got to have the right legal structure. You got to make sure you have that part of the conversation taken care of because, again, there's a risk-reward calculation you have to make with bringing people on board. As important as it is, you got to have your legal right. And our next supporter is the law firm of Dickinson Wright. With around 500 attorneys working from 19 offices across the US and Canada, they handle all types of business transactional law, including advising privately held and venture-backed companies in capital raising, merger and acquisitions, and transitions involving technology, software, data, and e-commerce. Partner Alex Brown serves as outside general counsel to startup companies ranging from business entity selection and formation, protection and commercialization of technology assets, conducting business online, and data security issues. For more information, visit dickinsonwright.com. All right, so hey, if you want to do bring on a co-founder, check out my guys over at Dickinson Wright. They can help you get that done. All right, Doug, the value proposition of Color Coded Labs. What is it?
So let's talk about the two sides of this business model. On the one hand, you have companies and businesses in the region and honestly throughout the country who are saying we're just not having enough technology talent. They have made the case. And this doesn't have to be a technology company, be a bank, an insurance company, a pharmaceutical developer, a service company. They have made the case that we need more technology talent. Whatever you're doing, double it, quadruple it. We're just desperate for them. And then they make the case we need more diverse technology talent. Recently, more. And then you look at the community and you say, I'm looking across the street here at 50 people. Why are you looking for talent and you looking for jobs? What's the missing connection point? And we've studied that and we've really had these long conversations about it. And it comes down to, among other things, some training and some skills. People don't have the confidence that they could walk into one of these jobs at the entry level because they don't have skills that are at least advertised. And people who are hiring don't believe that those people are in position to do that. We have to sit in the middle of that. And if we can add value to people who can increase their income and add value to people who can improve their products and generate money for their companies by sitting in the middle, that's a business opportunity, right? So any of your startups who have done this here know that arbitrage is, finding a supply and a demand and figuring out a production process to move that along. So that's what Color Coded Labs is. It's a 16-week boot camp. We can produce developers, software developers, but it's modular so that we can do other types of disciplines as well. So today it's developers, but tomorrow it may be more data science. It could be artificial intelligence. There's a huge amount of demand for project managers. Every discipline within IT is in demand. So how do you build a platform that can create a boot camp or a cohort capability for people to come in, put them in position to be hired, and knit those two things together. It's going to take relationships with those companies that we have, me and the other co-founders, and it's going to take relationships with the community. We are targeting Black and brown people, underserved, underemployed, historically marginalized communities, and that is the value proposition. That's a value add to the economy. And if we can do that, then we should be able to help both sides of the equation and turn a profit.
All right, so break it down for me. I hear this, I get excited. I'm on the community side. I want to participate in your boot camp. But right now, as you were explaining that, I was disqualifying myself, right? Maybe I don't have the core math skills, or I don't know if there's an entrance exam. I'm like literally, as you're telling me, and you're explaining an opportunity to me, I'm disqualifying myself from it, right? What can you share with somebody who's heard this and they're interested? Why should they take that next step? What do they need in order to become a student?
Yeah, so we self-select ourselves out of these opportunities, have been doing it for a long time. Not all the time, sometimes we're selected out. But yeah, there is that mental process. We wanted to design a business that spoke to those people. And that's why we are targeting these communities. So first thing, we need to talk. Don't say, yes, I'm perfect for it. I'm going to go full steam ahead. I'm going to become a full stack developer in 2 weeks and just run with it. Come talk to us. So we need to be available, put that out there and have that conversation. I do like to talk about myself having been a musician as well, because that resonates with people. If I say I'm a CIO, people say, okay, well, you must have done all this stuff and I could never do that. But if I say, yeah, I was studying jazz composition in Boston, I was not doing anything near this, and I was intimidated by math, and I felt like I couldn't do it. I came through on project management. I understand the technology and everything, but I don't necessarily do that. So my message for people is to get in front of us. It's a good opportunity for both Black Hack and Black Tech Columbus, where we actually mingle with people who are not in the field and say, look, 2 years ago, I was doing this other thing. I didn't study this in school. I didn't even go to school. And I'm here now. You can do this. We have to expose people to these kinds of opportunities. And this goes for anybody. If you talk to the women in technology kind of community, they will say the same thing. I self-select myself out. What needs to happen is that women get into a room, and then you invite women in and expose them to the kinds of stories that we all have. So that's how we're going to do it. It's retail work. It's heavy lifting. It's not going to be easy, but we have to tell our stories. Any Black and brown or underserved or marginalized people that you see being successful in this field have a story. We have to tell those stories so people listening say, that's not too different from my story. I'll talk to them.
And I wanted to shine light on that self-selecting out of opportunities because of stories that we tell ourselves. Let's talk about once you get over the barrier of self-selecting out and you come and you're now in a room with people who look like you. One of the things about Venture Suite is creating that type of space. What have you guys found in your research or kind of wanting to develop something that's very targeted? Why do you think that's so important for you to go into a room, into a classroom, into a networking event and see other people like you there?
I think it work on a mental and a psychological level. We all use the phrase representation matters. When you see people, I mean, the concept of a Michelle Obama changed transformational a lot of Black girls. Just the visual of it. You don't even have to do anything. And so that's important. You've heard me and the other partners talk about being the HBCU of tech boot camps. So I want to talk about that kind of model. I didn't go to an HBCU myself. All 4 of my children have either graduated from or are in an HBCU because I see it now. If I had known that, I would have gone to an HBCU. They just have a different model for welcoming you in, letting you know who you are and where you stand within this community, what the expectations are for your performance, and the value that you have. Those are critical things that you won't get at some other institutions. We want to to spread that ethos into the community so that people not only see people who look like them, they are instructed in the value and the capabilities that they have. Now, you and everybody else hopefully knows that everyone at a historically Black college or university is not Black. You don't have to be Black to go there. But if you are Black, you're going to have Black professors. You're going to probably have a Black president of the university. All the staff there are probably going to be Black, and a good deal of the students there. And it's not for everybody. But when you are coming from an environment where you have a tendency not only to self-select yourself from ever going in that direction, but every step along the way, every class, every B minus, every task that you had to undertake and you felt you didn't do that well at is telling you you don't belong here, you shouldn't be here. That's a legacy of historic and structural racism that we have, and many other types of things like that. That's why we have to create anti-structures that actually undo those mental messages that tell you you may have succeeded on this, but you're not going to succeed in the next one. And even if you get all the way through it, you're not going to get a job because they're not hiring people like you. This continues on 20, 30, 40 years. We have to create an environment in which we are producing more people who are pushing through that, or we're never going to find the diversity in the workforce that our companies and corporations are saying they want. They are saying, hey, we want you here. Let's figure out what the disconnect is. It's not all in our heads, but some of it is in our heads. We got to fix the part that we can fix without anybody helping us.
And part of it is also that piece that you have to lose a piece of you in order to get the job, right? You have to give up some part of your identity to be able to fit in. And that's another issue that we could dig into maybe on another episode, right? But I want to continue this line right now to go deeper into color-coded labs. So I'm over the part that I've self-selected out. I've showed up to an event. I'm motivated. I want to become a student. Here's where I become a little skeptical. Can you make me a developer in 16 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to add to the previous conversation, you know, you have me walking around, you have Brandon and Bruce and Kevin and you know, John and Brooke, and you have us walking around, you're like, okay, these people seem to be able to do it. If you're talking to another person who is a developer and they went through a boot camp, you're going to get that confidence. So becoming a full stack developer, software developer, is not becoming a computer scientist. It's not a full engineering program. The development portion of that consists of learning a language. I automatically just intimidated a bunch of people, right? But a computer language is not the same as learning Greek. It's not the same as learning Mandarin, right? It's a series of steps and things that if you can learn to play with Lego, you can learn a computer language and you will practice with it. You're not expected to learn it in a week. And so there are instructors and those kinds of things. So you're learning a language, you're learning a practice, you are learning certain norms and skills that we're going to teach you. And you get a chance to practice. And then when you become a developer, you're not going to be a senior developer. You're not going to be expected to code the next LinkedIn product or Facebook, right? You're going to be expected to join a team with senior people around you where you will have junior tasks and you will learn over time, just as you would with any other career. And so I think we put this magic into software development that first of all, it's really hard. Second of all, folks are really rock stars. If you went to a software development environment, and that's part of what Color Coded Labs will do, we'll take a software developer and put them at the front of the class and say, hey, I was a barista. I am now a software developer. You can do this. Musicians can learn this. Artists can learn this. You can become a software developer in 16 weeks. And I will say that boot camps all around the country, not Color Coded Labs, all sorts of boot camps are churning out 16-week new technologists. It's not the end of your journey. And it's not to say, like, if I do that, then I've got a career for the rest of my life. All of us continue learning every year, and that would be a path that you're on, but it's a new pathway. So instead of saying, I've got to go to college in order to do what I need to do, you can start and the steps and the rungs on the ladder are visible to you. You have to keep going. but don't intimidate yourself to say, uh, you know, I would have to be some sort of software developer that I saw in the movies or on
Yeah, you're not
NCIS
going
or
to become
something
a
like that.
hacker after 16 weeks and break into the Pentagon, okay? So if that's your expectation, that
Right.
takes time. But I think the analogy that works well for me is the key of, just know how to read, write, and basic arithmetic, and the ability to critical think and do research, and you could teach yourself anything, right? That's kind of like the foundation for what you need to be a lifelong learner. If I'm hearing you correctly, what you're giving folks is that process with which they could begin to learn and build upon, right? After 16 weeks, they will be qualified to
Yeah.
think this way and perform tasks of an entry level developer. Is that a fair way of describing it?
Yeah, it is. And I just I want to add on to that, that you may already have the brain wiring that does this. So I'm going to say, for example, just using my musician, not that it's the same thing. If you can spit lyrics, you might have, especially, I'm fascinated by people who can come up with lyrics on the fly in a battle and put them together in rhyming ways and construct them in a way that's either funny or deep or something like that. It's extraordinarily creative. You just created a pattern out of nothing. And you're telling yourself, I'm not good at math. And when I got into technology, somebody presented it to me in a way that was a lot like jazz. It was a chord structure, it was a progression. And then I said, well, I can do this all day and night. And that's what we're failing to do. Help people understand that you probably already have a lot of this creativity. Let us test you. Let us show you that, if you could put this together. And a lot of people consider themselves great rappers. They may not be that great, but they don't tell themselves, I could never do this. You're not that great at basketball, but you tell yourself, yeah, I'm going to be in the NBA. No, you're not, and you don't have to be that great in order to do much of this work, just as a workaday person making a great living. And that's what we're talking about. I think a lot of people look at software coders. They think you're a geek or a nerd. They think you're special or something. It's hard work. People are just getting up, going to work, making a great living. Buy a car, buy a house. You know what I mean? Build some wealth for your
Well,
family.
I really
That's what we're
like
trying
that.
to do.
And I want you to kind of go into the part that I think a lot of us definitely walk away from the table when it comes to this, which is the financial portion of it. So a lot of our Gen Zers, kind of Gen X and Gen Y, got caught up in the student loan issue, which is trying to get money to get these degrees. And the 4-year degrees were the only available option if you wanted to get work. But now, in our world, there are a lot of options to educate yourself and become a highly sought after in the job market. But before we talk about money, I got to give my last shout out to one of our partners. And of course, it's only appropriate that I'm talking about Book and Street. Book and Street provides finance and accounting solutions for startups in the Midwest and beyond. From strategic financial support to bookkeeping and everything in between, they've got your back office covered. Let their experienced team of finance and accounting professionals help your startup get it right from the start. Learn more at bookandstreet.com and set up your free 30-minute consultation with their team today. All right, let's talk about the moolah, all right, and the financial aspect of participating in color-coded labs.
Yeah. So there's a worst case scenario, and I'll go to that in a minute. But there are a number of different financing opportunities with Color Coded Labs. It's a for-profit business, and so the cost of the program is $13,500. So don't think anything just yet. Don't think to yourself, I don't have $13,500. I will tell you that companies uh, have an interest in you passing this program. The state has all sorts of scholarships and money available, and we run a lot of that. And so depending on who you are and what your life situation is, there's a lot of different ways of money becoming available for that. I, when I went to college, I realized that if you weren't 18 or 19, you weren't going to get a scholarship anymore. Trust me, if you go back to college, you're 28 or 34, you're not getting a scholarship. And a lot of people may say to themselves, yeah, that's just not going to be available for me. But as an adult learner in a boot camp environment, there's an enormous amount of money available. So I want to let you know that if you fit into a certain economic category, Our goal is to take you from whatever income level you're making and boost it up to this income level. So there's an income growth no matter what your situation is. Either you are already maybe working in technology, maybe in the help desk or something, wanting to move on, then you have an income at least. So getting into a program like this it's an investment in your future. So the worst case scenario here is, I shouldn't even call it worst case scenario, but it's the income share agreement. And what that is that you're going to pay for this yourself. And that is if no other money came along or other opportunities, which I can promise you, there is other money and opportunities. The income share agreement works like we're going to find you a job and it's going to make a lot more money than you're making now. And a portion of your income that you just pay back over the course of, say, 20 months or something like that. Do you want to pay that back? No, but you'd have a job. And one of the issues that you would have an increased income. One of the issues that the college situation had is that you got to bet up front that you're going to get a really great job on the back end. And then when you graduate, if you don't make the income that you were expecting, you're in a world of hurt and you stretch out those payments for a long time. And you got to pay it as if you bought a used car, as if you bought a house. You now have a note that you have to pay. This does not work that way. This is, if you don't get the income that we said you were going to get, then you're not paying anything. So you get the job that you're expecting, you pay a small amount of that income back. Some companies have arrangements in which they say, look, I want this person really badly, so I'm going to pay for their going through this program, those sponsorship opportunities. Our job are to match you up with those kinds of sponsorship and funding opportunities. Our hope would be that you would never have to pay this back. But if you don't have that opportunity and you have the opportunity to go through this program, I would recommend you do it, because with the income you're going to make, you're going to be so much better off. This is not going to take you more than 2 years. So if you've ever bought a car and put it on 5 years or 72
All right, I love
months,
that. And so
you're going
you
to
have
pay
options
for
here,
that car a lot
right?
more than
And
you're going to pay for this new
for
income. So let's
companies
have a
in the
conversation
state,
about
they
it.
are incentivized because there's a demand for this workforce, and they want to be competitive as well. So if you think about Jobs Ohio in the state, they're working very hard to attract companies here. There's a race for tech companies as other states have their issues around being attractive to those kind of businesses. Maybe they've taken them for granted. Ohio wants to compete for those jobs, and having a trained workforce is in the state's interest. So, with Doug and the rest of the team, Brandon and Bruce, working with those type of opportunities, hey, over time, Color Coded Labs provides a benefit by increasing the workforce. So Jobs Ohio or other organizations like that might take an interest. Same goes for companies, right? They want to locate HQ2s. There's not a day that goes by where a company might have headquarters somewhere else, but they're looking to expand. And one of the things that they're always looking at is the workforce. So as a company's coming over, want to open HQ2 if there's a shortage, because I feel like there's a little bit of cannibalism with a lot of the startups. Hey, people are taking developers from each other. Why not grow the pie? So there's an incentive for these companies to fund education if possible. And then finally, hey, you're going to have more income. We won't call it the worst case scenario. We'll call it the scenario that might occur when all other options have been exhausted, but you'll have the increased income to actually pay for your education. And it's not really an expense per se. It is an investment. All right, let's talk about cohort 1. Have you actually started classes? If not, when will you start classes? And if there are people interested, how do they get started?
So we have not started classes. We are building cohort 1 now. If you are interested in what we've said, then you need to go to the website, which is colorcodedlabs.com, and fill out a form, register your interest. And we're going to ask you to give us a bunch of information, and we're going to go through a screening process. One of the parts of that screening process is to look at how your brain is wired. How do you look at problems? How do you organize your work and things like that? That's a good thing, because we're not going to ask someone who probably is not going to make it through the program to enter the program. And don't think of it as being cut or being unable to do it. Think of it as, based on what we know about this particular course, you might want to think about not doing this. So it's an opportunity for you not to make a mistake. and for you not to spend money that may not result in what you're looking for. There are other screening processes, and then near the end of April, probably the first part of May, we will open the books on the first cohort. We are expecting 20 students, so you'll be selected. You'll go through this battery of tests, not a test like, did you learn this and you have to pass the test, but more a test like, hey, how do you see the world in this way, and how do you work with teams in that way? And then we position you for success in the program. It's a 16-week program. It'll begin the first part of May, as soon as that cohort is full. And we have some really great instructors who are going to sit with you and help you move through those things. I do want to mention one thing also about what you said about the state's interest and companies' interest in coming here, a little bit of inside baseball and the way this game is played. We need to learn to play the game the way everybody plays the game. And that is when companies come to the state, they make a promise. They make a commitment to hiring a certain amount of people, and they receive some benefit of some sort, a tax abatement or some great land or a great office space or something like that. And now they have a number. Let's say it's 50 jobs. They have to fill those 50 jobs. They come back to the state and say, hey, we tried to fill those 50 jobs, but we can't find the qualified people that we want. The state then is in trouble. State has to say, all right, well, we need to find these 50 people because they promised that they would hire them. And that's ultimately what we want, 50 more people working in the state of Ohio. So they work with training programs like ours in order to make sure that you can get into them and that you will be successful in them. So the cohort is very intensive and immersive. It's hours per day. It's a lot of work to be done, but it's going to result in a much higher income, perhaps an income that you didn't think that you could reach. And you're going to be working every day and writing code and talking to other people in your cohort and talking to people about how to interview and do your LinkedIn profile and all sorts of soft skills like that. So that's how the cohort is going to go.
Fantastic,
16
Doug.
weeks
Thank you so
later,
much for
you're
taking
going to
the
walk
time
out
to
and
kind
we're
of
going to be
explain
working
what
with
Color
you to
Coded
get a
Labs
better
is. And
job and
also a
better
big
income.
thank you, man. This is another thing, right? So if you have a company like mine and you go out and you're trying to raise supporters and get advertising dollars, we tend to get advertising dollars from majority white-owned organizations, or if it's a privately traded company, white-led organizations. Nothing wrong with that. But Color Coded Labs, as a Black-owned organization, has stepped up, and they're one of our latest partners. So thank you guys so much for that. So excited to have Color Coded Labs as one of our partners. And one of the things I think, if I was to cast forward a big vision that I see for our collaboration, is can we measurably shift the median income for Black households in Columbus, Ohio? Because Color Coded Labs represents a meaningful opportunity to do that. All right, now, before I close the show, I gotta give my one takeaway, because I give my takeaway every show, and it's do not self-select out. Do not let the voice in your head talk you out of opportunities. Doug has said multiple times during this show, we gotta learn how to play the game. And part of playing the game is showing up for the actual practices, the audition. You're not gonna get on the team if you don't show up. So guys, get your confidence up, reach out to Color Coded Labs if you're interested in becoming a coder, and get the process started. All right, that's a wrap. You can find this in all episodes on our website, 614startups.com, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. Don't forget to subscribe and write a review. If you would like updates sent to your inbox, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter on the website. To engage in the 614 Startups community, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and of course, YouTube. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube at 614 Startups on all platforms to join the conversation. For sponsorship opportunities and collaborations, email us at info@614startups.com. Thank you, folks. Peace.